I went to the hotel to give hangover medicine to my bestie. But I heard a familiar, ambiguous voice from next door. The man who said he would love me forever yesterday. Now he made such a sound to another woman. Later, others laughed at him. Stella was pregnant, but Lucas still didn't let it go. My bestie drank too much at a social event, so I bought hangover medicine and sent her to the hotel. My bestie vomited in the trash can in the room. After vomiting, she looked at me with blurred eyes. Stella, I am too miserable. I broke up with my boyfriend yesterday, and I was forced to drink by the client at a social event today. I opened a room next door, and they are so loving. I can't live like this, sob. While I complained about her stubbornness, I couldn't help but pay attention to the movement next door. Everyone has curiosity. Suddenly, a suppressed roar came. The tissue box in my hand fell down. This sound. I have heard it for 10 years. I turned my head. Wendy, you are not as miserable as me. The one sleeping with another woman next door is Lucas. What? Lucas cheated? I looked at Wendy and didn't know what expression to make. My heart seemed to be strangled by an invisible hand, and an overwhelming suffocation enveloped me. Damn. I'll help you catch the adulterer. You bastard. I held her back. I took out my phone, and with trembling fingers, I called Lucas. The phone rang next door. I didn't answer. I couldn't hear the ringing next door when I called again. I finally stopped Wendy from helping me catch the mistress. Because I didn't know how to deal with the situation in front of me. I sat on the sofa when I got home. I looked at the house where Lucas and I had lived together for 6 years. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Betrayal was like a sharp blade that cut through my head and split me apart. Lucas cheated on me behind my back. I'm afraid no one would believe it if I told others about it. After all, in everyone's eyes, Lucas and I met when we were young and fell in love in our youth. He was quiet and taciturn since childhood, but he was different to me. I cried and vented my sadness and grievances, and my mood gradually calmed down. If you ask me who is the most important person in my life, it must be Lu Jinnian. It was him who put the choice of life in front of me when I was most desperate and helpless. However, maybe some people are destined not to accompany you all the way. It was midnight when Lucas got home. When he came in and saw me still sitting on the sofa, he was stunned with a drunken face. Why haven't you slept yet? Are you busy recently? I stared at him intently, trying to find clues from his face. Is he too good at acting, or am I too stupid? It's obviously the same face, but it looks strange now. There was a problem with a project recently. Watching him lie without changing his face, I couldn't tell whether I was more angry or disappointed. My hands and feet were cold. My heart was the same. The next day, I took a special leave to accompany Lu's father and mother to climb the mountain. I had selfish motives. The two elders were kind to me and always treated me like their own daughter. If it weren't for them, maybe I would have been struggling in the quagmire all my life. I went out with my bag, and Lucas said he wanted to go with me. I was surprised, but didn't refuse. I couldn't stop him from honoring his parents. Just think of it as an extra driver. Aunt Lu saw us coming out of the car together, and her smile deepened. She joked, "Wow, how come you are free today?" Lucas was helpless. "Mom. If you don't show up, I almost forgot that I have a son." No wonder they say daughters are caring. Stella is still the best. She remembers to come and see us, no matter how busy she is at work. When are you two going to get things done? I can hear Stella call me Mom earlier. I felt bitter and forced a smile. Lucas is busy with work, so there is no rush to get married. And even if we don't get married, you and Uncle Lu are my parents in my heart. Stella is really good. You said this brat knew how to take his wife home when he was a teenager. Lucas smiled. I have good taste. I pinched my fingers hard to barely control my expression. Four people sat in the car, and the color outside the window gradually changed from gray cement color to green. There were fewer and fewer cars on the road. Suddenly, a quick ring rang, pulling me back from the scenery outside the window. Lucas's phone call. I glanced at it casually. Secretary Tang. When did he change his secretary? Suddenly, I realized that I hadn't visited Lucas's company for a long time. I don't know what the other party said. Lucas frowned his beautiful eyebrows, pursed his lips, and seemed to be a little embarrassed. I asked Sute to go over and deal with it. Okay, then you wait there for me to come over. After hanging up the phone, Lucas parked the car on the side of the road. He said that the company had an emergency. Aunt Lu scolded him unhappily. I'll accompany you next time. After saying that, he hurriedly got out of the car. I drove the car to the foot of the mountain in silence, without saying a word. There are few people at the foot of the mountain. The forests on the mountain are lush and the birds are singing. Without the sound of people and cars, it is finally quiet. There is a homestay converted from a residential house on the mountain, which has been around for some time. I took a shower and lay in bed at night. Suddenly, I had a mysterious premonition, which drove me to open the Douyin account and click on the Douyin account list. Among the many avatars, I saw the back figure that I could recognize without clicking on the video. In the video, the man did not show his face, only the metal on his wrist showed that the man was worth a lot. And that watch was bought by me. After I was promoted to lead a team, I completed the first project beautifully and received a generous bonus. I used the money to buy gifts for everyone in the Lu family. And this watch was bought by me with half a year's salary. The account updated the video in the afternoon. The copywriting is, the most handsome and considerate boss in history, no one else. Knowing that my car was scratched, he rushed over from 50 kilometers away to help me deal with it. I love you. The comments below are all, sister, you treat him as a boss, he doesn't treat you as an employee. Good knock, what kind of idle drama is this that has come true, the boss's domineering love? I envy my sister, if he doesn't like you, I will chop off my head and let you kick it. Help, just looking at his hands, you can tell that he is a handsome guy, the blogger is so happy. My stomach was churning, and I wanted to vomit but couldn't. I lay on the bed and retched, tears in the corners of my eyes. The night on the mountain was really cold. The moonlight leaked in. It shone on the empty half of the bed. I didn't sleep all night. Although this famous inn is a bit old, it has a good scenery. There is a sea of forests outside the house. Looking from afar, you can see the faint sea of clouds outside the forest. The morning light illuminates the tip of the pavilion on the ridge. I sorted out my emotions and strolled with the two elders. I asked Uncle Lu about the company in a vague way. He said, it's busy. Such a big company has so many companies under it. If you want to be less busy, you can only wait until you retire or go bankrupt. I lowered my eyes, and my heart ached dully. Busy or not busy depends on people, not things. The sweet memories of the past wrapped me tightly like a fine net, unable to break free and escape. The past was too beautiful, so it hurt, and it really hurt. Memories flashed before my eyes like a passing show. Time flies. I was only 14 years old when I first came here. The pillars of the pavilion were mottled. Aunt Lu smiled gently, yes, 15 years have passed in a flash. I pinched the hem of my clothes unnaturally and asked tentatively, if Lucas and I had not been in love, would Uncle and Aunt be willing to treat me as a daughter? Auntie looked at me for a long time and asked hesitantly if we had quarreled. I opened my mouth and wanted to say no. But in the end, I said nothing. She patted my hand gently. When encountering things, communicate well. Things between two people should be solved by two people together. There are always bumps in life. I opened my eyes wide and dared not blink, for fear that tears would not fall out. Uncle Lu saw this and guessed something. Stella, no matter what, you are our daughter. If Lucas bullies you, tell us, and we will teach him a lesson. After hearing this, I couldn't hold it back anymore, and tears rolled down one by one and fell on the ground, broken into dark flowers. Aunt Lu saw this, and seemed to understand, and pulled me to sit down in the pavilion. If it is something that can be overcome, then grit your teeth and work together to overcome it. If it is something that cannot be overcome, then be stronger and overcome it yourself. Stella, although you are not my biological child, from the first day you decided to stay in this family, I have treated you as my own child. Don't wrong yourself. I hope Lucas is happy, and I hope you can be happy too. I suddenly cried and hugged Aunt Lu tightly. I cried so hard that I was out of breath. No matter what happens, I am your daughter. Maybe I cried for a long time, and I started to have a fever after returning home. I took antipyretics, but I woke up with a worse fever. I felt weak all over. I haven't been sick for a long time, but when I get sick, it's hard to bear. I gritted my teeth, changed clothes, and rushed to the hospital. A moment later, the boss who had just approved my leave on the phone appeared in front of me magically. He raised his eyebrows and asked me why I was alone. My boyfriend is busy. Nathan looked at me meaningfully. Haha, he is so busy that he has no time to take care of his girlfriend when she is sick. You can see that man's vision is really not good. Even though I'm used to this man's sharp tongue, my heart still hurts a little. Nathan is my boss and also my senior. He is 2 years older than me and is the most motivated second-generation rich man I've ever seen. Before graduating from college, he pulled a few of his fellow students to open a studio and asked their parents for investment. Now, the small studio has become a well-known company. What the boss says is right. Is there something wrong with you coming here? Ahem, there was a small accident. He looked at me guiltily. The plan you came up with last week was leaked. The budget of the new plan put forward by Wancher Group is 10% lower than ours. There is a traitor in the company. I will find it out. The new plan, ahem, has to be handed over to you. I stared at him in amazement. Nathan, I'm so sick, and you actually came here to exploit my labor. He touched his nose and said, don't worry, just take a good rest and hand over the new plan to me within 3 days. My eyes went dark. 3 days? Half a month's workload was squeezed into 3 days? Unscrupulous boss. Black-hearted businessman. Resign. I won't. Before I finished speaking, he spoke again. Double the bonus, the whole team will get it, and there will be my personal allowance. I won't, possibly, fail to complete the task. Nathan, don't worry. He asked the nurse for a disposable cup, filled it with hot water and handed it to me. Have a good rest today, take good care of yourself and continue to work hard for the company. I will live up to your expectations, boss, and don't forget the overtime pay. Nathan turned his head with a dark face, and left quickly after saying that he had to go to work. A little girl was sitting opposite me, holding her stomach with a pale face. I was about to ask if I needed help. A burst of hurried trotting came. The boy's wind-filled school uniform was full of youthful breath. When he stopped, his eyebrows and eyes were full of sweat. Anan, how are you? I brought you a hot water bottle, you hold it for a while. The girl was obviously in so much pain that she couldn't straighten her waist, but she still smiled and shook her head. I'm fine, don't worry. This sentence made my eyes wet instantly. The scene in front of me. It looked familiar. That time when I had my period, I didn't know why it was so painful. During the class meeting, I was in so much pain that I lay on the table, sweating coldly, and didn't even have the strength to raise my hand. The head teacher was busy talking and didn't notice that I was abnormal. The genius boy in the teacher's eyes suddenly stood up regardless of everyone's eyes, and the chair made a harsh friction sound on the ground. Lucas ran over with a panicked face and picked me up. On the way to the infirmary, his hands were still shaking. I nestled in his arms, endured the pain, and whispered to him, "I'm fine, don't worry." At that time, Lucas would go to the supermarket to buy me sanitary products, regardless of other people's strange eyes. That bright and sunny boy would wander in front of the women's products shelf for half an hour, just to study which brand was the safest. That boy was my youth. A reckless desire for self-abuse suddenly surged in my heart. Since it hurts so much, let it hurt a little more. I clicked on the Douyin account. She updated the content. "My birthday is coming in 2 days, but my boss asked me to accompany him on a business trip to Haicheng that day." Poor worker, crying. Her fans are happy for her. Simple little fool, your boss wants to take you to celebrate your birthday. Single dogs express envy, having only seen such plots in novels. You two should get together soon and make my CP come true. The hand holding the phone is getting tighter and tighter. Lucas, you said. You will never abandon me. You will never abandon me like my parents did. You said. You said you won't. I buried my head in my knees and hugged myself. I hid in my own world like an ostrich. Hug myself. In my memory, there is no mother, only my father as a relative. I heard that my mother ran away with someone else when I was 1 year old. And my father is also addicted to alcohol. When I don't drink, I think he loves me. He will buy me yogurt to drink. But after drinking, he will throw yogurt on my face and punch and kick me. Only when he is sober can I feel a little bit of fatherly love. I silently endured the violence that could not be avoided, coveted the only warmth in life, and stubbornly refused to escape the confinement of my original family. Until one day in the second year of junior high school, I realized that life is not the worst, but only worse. My father became addicted to gambling, lost the house deed, and even lost me to someone else. A group of big men with tattoos on their arms broke into the classroom. They asked loudly who Stella was. The security guards couldn't drive them away. Before the police arrived, everyone knew that Stella's father used her as a bargaining chip to lose to others for gambling. For a time, everyone pointed fingers at me, classmates deliberately isolated me, rumors swept the whole school, and everyone avoided me. They talked about me, and the malice in their eyes broke me into pieces. Stella's father wanted to adopt her to someone else. Stella was going to sell herself. Stella was already a prostitute. She now went to school during the day and worked at night. I hid in the corner of the playground, covered my ears, and burst into tears. Negative emotions almost overwhelmed me. At the age of 14, I stood in front of the abyss and was about to fall. What did I do wrong? I obviously didn't hurt anyone. Why did everyone want to hurt me? Suddenly, someone patted my shoulder from behind. I wiped my tears and turned around. The sunlight leaking from the gap in the clouds fell on the boy, and he seemed to come out of a dream. The soft and fluffy hair was blown by the wind and danced, revealing the extremely gentle eyes under the bangs. The boy stretched out his hand to me, and there seemed to be stars in his eyes. Stella, don't cry, I will take you home at night, and my home will be your home from now on. That night he took me home and persuaded my parents to let me stay. From that day on, I lived in his guest room. Aunt Lu and Uncle Lu helped me solve my family problems through legal means. I silently accepted their kindness and swore in my heart that I must work harder. The starlight will not let down the traveler, and I was admitted to a key high school. Children without umbrellas always have to run harder. Lucas and I are firmly ranked first and second in the grade. He is naturally smart, and I can make up for my shortcomings with hard work. After Lucas went home in the evening, I pretended to be careless. I asked him, what if we get tired of each other in the future? He paused while pouring water from the cup. Do you dislike me? I was just thinking, we have been together for so long, will we forget our original intentions one day? Will we still feel the same excitement after meeting for a long time? However, the answer to me was a brief silence. He told me not to let my imagination run wild. He didn't answer, just answer. The moment the door closed, I couldn't help but collapse on the sofa. Tears fell silently. I couldn't help but think about what they were like when they were together. Will he also look at her so gently, kiss her tenderly, and hug her passionately? The surging waves overwhelmed me and hit me into the sea. The pain that could not be vented tore at me and made me unbearable. How wonderful it would be if life was just like the first time we met. The next day I started to rush to work. Try not to think about anything related to him. Nathan on the other end of the video conference frowned and looked sad. Nathan, Launcher Group suggested replacing old materials with new ones to save costs, but this material has a short time to market. If we can prove the risk of replacing old materials in large quantities, we may be able to buy more time. Otherwise, even if we come up with a new plan within 3 days, the chances of success are slim. I held my forehead and suddenly felt dizzy. I don't know if it's because I'm too tired, but my fever has not subsided and keeps coming back. Okay, leave this to me. You don't look very well. Take a good rest today. Tomorrow. The sound in my ears is getting smaller and smaller. Suddenly, it's dark in front of my eyes. In a trance, I seem to have had a dream. Lucas in the dream has become 18 years old. At the desk of the Lu family. I was writing furiously, and he sat quietly beside me after finishing his homework. From time to time, he cut some fruit for me and poured me a glass of milk. I joked with him and asked him if he raised me as a daughter. The young Lucas glared at me and said nothing, but his ears turned red quietly. The scene changed. Outside the junior high school classroom, I was surrounded by a group of girls against the wall. So what if I have good grades, but I don't have a good father? Haha, there is no mother either. Every word turned into a knife, stabbing into my body one by one. The malice that came at me imprisoned my hands and feet. I was defenseless in front of them. When I was at a loss, a pair of warm hands held me tightly. 18-year-old Lucas said to them with a cold face, "Excellent people will shine no matter where they are. She is excellent, better than any of you." I didn't cry in the face of bad words, but his words made me cry loudly. It seemed that I wanted to cry out all the grievances. There was still a chill on my face when I woke up. "Stella, you are in love, right? You fainted with fever and still called your boyfriend's name. TSK TSK TSK. I asked Nathan why he was in the hospital. "You suddenly fainted during a meeting, I called the police, and the ambulance took you here." He looked at me unnaturally. "Why didn't you tell me that you were still having a fever? I can find someone else to do the plan." The nurse suddenly came in and interrupted us. The family of bed 35 accompanied him to do a CT scan. "Come back to see the doctor after the report comes out." I asked him to go back first. He felt guilty and refused to leave. I had no choice but to call Lucas. I sighed in my heart, what a coincidence. He was leaving for Haicheng in the afternoon. I asked him if he could come to the hospital to accompany me and postpone work for one day. As a result, he asked me to find a friend to accompany me. At this moment, I felt like I was in an ice cellar. I thought that even if we didn't love each other anymore, we still had friendship. After all, I thought so. Nathan accompanied me to do the CT scan, and then I sent him back to the company. He asked me to call him anytime I needed him. I smiled. The doctor got the film and frowned. He said, "Come and do a puncture tomorrow." I sat in the corridor of the hospital for a long time. I stared blankly at the patients and their families coming and going. Loneliness swept over and drowned me. I will be alone again in the future. I slept very uneasy that night. I woke up in the early morning, and the moonlight leaked in from the gap in the curtains and shone on the other half of the bed. How long will it take for me to get used to being alone? I simply didn't sleep. I opened my phone and she updated another photo. In the photo, the woman was holding a piece of strawberry cake, smiling at the camera, with a hand with distinct finger bones sticking out from behind her, about to hold another piece of cake. Netizens guessed it right. A birthday at public expense. I stared at the photo for a long time. Suddenly I remembered. I have seen her. A month ago, Lucas went out for a social gathering and she drove him home. That day, I was only concerned with supporting Lucas. I only quickly glanced at her in the driver's seat. I took a quick glance and didn't take it seriously. I didn't even delve into who she was. I trusted him so much. So when he stabbed me with a knife, I was completely defenseless. As a result, I was heartbroken and in agony. We saw each other again 5 days later. When Lucas came back, he was dusty and exhausted. He leaned on the sofa, closed his eyes, and the beard on his chin emerged. I closed the door gently. "How are you?" "I'm sorry, I've been too busy these days." A slightly hoarse voice broke the silence in the room. The night outside the window was endless. I walked up to him step by step. I tried my best. Finally I said, "Lucas, let's break up." He straightened up and softened his voice. "Stella, I've been really busy recently. I won't ignore you after this period. Lucas, let's part ways in peace." He saw that I didn't look like I was in a bad mood. Then he realized that I was serious. The room became colder. He was silent. Seeing this, I turned around and went to the master bedroom to pack my things. Moved to the guest room. The moment I saw Lucas downstairs of the company, I was not surprised. He is not a person who likes to procrastinate. I got in the car obediently. He didn't rush to get out when we got home. "Stella, we have been with each other for so many years. The relationship between us cannot be thrown away. I didn't take good care of you. I apologize, and I won't do it again in the future." I finally couldn't control the sourness in my eyes, and my eyes were red. I looked at him. There were no stars in my boyish eyes. The hand that pulled me back from the edge of the cliff finally held someone else. "But you cheated." Every word was heartbreaking. Some mistakes can be corrected, but some mistakes, once made, can't be undone. He didn't expect that I already knew, and he panicked. "No, Stella, can you listen to my explanation?" "I didn't mean it, I really didn't mean it." I gathered my clothes and said. "Wendy drank too much that day, and I took her to stay at the Lu Jinnian Hotel, room 602. I heard it. You left me and Uncle Lu and Aunt Lu halfway because of her. I was not feeling well, so you didn't have time to come to the hospital, and you spent her birthday with her that night, right? All these were not intentional?" Lucas suddenly hugged me. Through my clothes. His hands were shaking slightly. "It's not what you think. Stella, it's not. I left you on the road because the company had something to do, and the information was in her car at the time. On the day of the business trip, she bought a cake and invited everyone to come together, which I didn't know at first. Wan Jing. I drank too much, and she sent me to the hotel. I don't know what happened. When I woke up, what shouldn't have happened had already happened. I didn't mean it, Stella." I looked at his panicked look and broke free from his hand. I looked at him as if I had never known him. "Are you lying to me or to yourself? Didn't you acquiesce to it? Didn't she send you home before? Why did you go to the hotel that day? Are you really drunk and don't know anything? You know what she is thinking, and you just let it happen naturally. On the day of going to Junshan, did the company really need you? Besides, you never eat cake. Are you really busy? So busy that you don't dare to come to see me?" Lucas's face turned pale. I stopped looking at him and pushed the door to get out of the car. Lucas didn't realize that he was the one who loosened his defenses little by little. He let others approach him. That night, I dragged my suitcase to Wendy. Wendy didn't ask me anything. I ordered a table of hot pot. The pot was steaming, and the spicy aroma instantly healed me. Sure enough, if there is something that can't be resolved, just go and have a hot pot meal. If that doesn't work, then have 2 meals. It's great. The smell of fireworks. The agency's message came earlier than the hospital. Nathan knew I was moving and said he would come to help. I refused. He seemed to still feel guilty about my fainting. It was obviously not his fault. I went back to pack my luggage, and Lucas suddenly came back. He probably didn't expect to see me at home. Looking at me, he opened and closed his mouth again and again, and it took him a long time to utter a word. I transferred her away, and the new secretary is a man. I interrupted him. We broke up. If you really like her, then. Don't like her. Lucas suddenly raised his voice. He stood there dejected and helpless, with a scruffy beard, looking indescribably haggard and sad. I didn't say anything else. I packed up the rest of my things neatly and said goodbye. We all knew. It was really over. Nathan encouraged the group to gather at my new home. I thought it would be nice to have a chance to have some fun. Then he called Wendy and bought a bunch of food and drinks. Wendy raised her glass and said to me, "Happy single." Everyone looked at me in an instant. Then they tacitly didn't ask any more questions. Nathan squeezed next to me in a mean way and replaced the wine in my hand with a drink. The others saw it and raised their eyebrows at each other. Everyone laughed and played tricks on each other. The lively atmosphere made me happy for the first time in a long time. So much so that I was reluctant to send them downstairs. I said see you tomorrow several times before turning around to go home. In the corner of my sight, Lucas's cold figure suddenly appeared in the mottled fragments. He really has a good appearance, even with a scruffy beard. After I took a look at him, I turned around and went home. I won't look back. The biopsy report came out. Good news, benign. Bad news, the tumor is too big, surgery is recommended. Sometimes life is like fighting monsters to level up. I said I would make an appointment for surgery after I arranged my work. Sometimes it's just a coincidence. I saw Lucas in the hospital corridor when I walked out the door. He also saw me. I immediately turned around and walked away quickly. Suddenly I felt that it didn't hurt so much to see him again. But from that day on, Lucas seemed to have changed. I would see him downstairs at my home and company every day. He didn't come to talk to me. He just looked at me when I showed up. His expression seemed sad and painful. I felt puzzled. Nathan was always saying something weird in my ear. Sometimes he asked me if we were going to reconcile. Sometimes he said that a good horse never turns back. Even my colleagues said that men who make a mistake once will make it again. Men without a sense of boundaries are not worth keeping. I was troubled by what they said, and I casually said that Nathan came to our place every day, so he was also a scumbag. Everyone shut up immediately. When they looked at Nathan again, their eyes were full of different meanings. One of them even shook his head at Nathan. People around me have been acting strange recently. I didn't tell anyone about the surgery. I found a nurse. But when I woke up after the surgery, it was Nathan who sat next to me. He said he would come to see me. When I could move normally, he would bring the work to me. I really want to knock his head open to see what's inside. How can a boss who exploits his employees make his company big? The days in the hospital are really boring. Nathan takes me for a walk every day. Today, I bought roasted sweet potatoes at the entrance of the hospital. When I went back, I found that there were many people gathered at the entrance of the ward. Nathan helped me in. Inside, there was a guest I didn't expect. Secretary Tang. Nathan carefully helped me sit back on the bed. The girl looked at us and suddenly cried. Sister Stella, can you stop pestering him because you were adopted by the Lu family and grew up with brother Lucas? We were very happy when we were together. Can you please not break us up? I really love him, and there are more than one man around you. Unlike me, I have only liked him since I was a child. I only have him. Please, Sister Stella. Her red eyes and messy hair made her look fragile and aggrieved. So pitiful. Nathan stood up and was about to speak. I held him back. My Lucas has known each other for 16 years and has been in love for 10 years. We were going to get married. You don't have to play dumb. You have seen me, haven't you? Those videos and photos were sent to me, right? Now you have succeeded, we have broken up, and your affairs in the future have nothing to do with me. Don't show up in front of me again, I feel sick. She didn't seem to expect me to be so calm. After a moment of stunned silence, her expression changed instantly and she glared at me fiercely. You'd better keep your word. She left after saying that. The wound was aching slightly, and I changed my sitting position. I was a little breathless. Don't think too much, it's all over. Nathan looked at me worriedly. I gave him a forced smile. I thought everything was over. Until I received a bouquet of flowers. I thought it was from a friend. I wanted to put the flowers together. I opened them. The liquid that flowed out dyed my eyes red. It was blood. The blood that nourished the flowers was blood. I was frozen in that moment. The fishy smell filled my nose, and the flowers fell to the ground. Blood flowed along my fingers, drop by drop, and I seemed to hear its sound. This was the scene Nathan saw when he walked in. He rushed over in an instant. Stella, where are you injured? Doctor. Doctor. Nurse. He stretched out his hand, not daring to touch me. It's not my blood. I slowly raised my head, my voice slightly hoarse. He looked at me deeply and hugged me gently. Don't be afraid. Then Nathan called the police. The hospital surveillance camera captured the errand boy. I didn't know until the next day. Tang Xiaoxiao sent the video of her coming to me that day and begging me not to entangle Lucas in the name of childhood sweethearts. But only the first half. Her fans and passers-by felt sorry for her. They exposed me. No wonder she had a tumor. She must have used too much viciousness. How could it not be malignant? What is this disgusting woman still doing in the world? Poor blogger, how can a little rabbit fight a vixen? No wonder her parents didn't want her. She must have been a bad person since she was a child. This is the first time I applaud parents for abandoning their children. It turns out that the internet can really kill people. I curled up and covered myself with the quilt. The white sheets under my eyes were stained with dark colors. After a long time, I heard a quarrel outside the door. It seemed to be the voices of Lucas and Nathan. I didn't go to see it. I vaguely heard Lucas say that he would give me an explanation. I closed my eyes and hid myself like an ostrich. I knew that more things were being delivered one after another. But they were all stopped by Nathan. He never left my side and moved all his work to the hospital. No matter how stupid I was, I understood his thoughts at this time. I couldn't respond to him. Lucas took up too much time in my life. So much so that I wanted to pull him out of my body. It hurt like a cramp and skin peeling. It made me exhausted and unbearable. Later, I heard from Nathan that Lucas accepted an interview, explained the whole story, and let the media release it. He apologized to me, and a grown man cried like a child at the end of the video. The boy was drawn with one stroke, and he caught my eye. That clear and gentle boy can only remain in youth. Stay in my 16 years of memories. Goodbye. My boy. After being discharged from the hospital, Nathan almost moved to my house. He only went back to his own house to sleep. If there was something in the company, he would come directly to my house. I protested several times, saying that my body was fine. He rejected them all. I had no choice but to let him go. Anyway, I could work at home. I took care of it for a month. After returning to work at the company, Nathan did not appear at my house less often. One day later, I realized. This man had planned it. Unknowingly, he infiltrated my life and was everywhere. One afternoon 2 years later, he called me to the office. He said that the proposal I submitted last week satisfied the client and that our team was excellent. He said that as a boss, he thought I was an excellent employee. It was just that my salary was too high. So he thought of a way to save costs. He said, "Marry me, Stella, so that I won't have to pay you salary in the future." I didn't know whether to cry or laugh after hearing this. This person is always mean. Later we got married. Aunt Lu and Uncle Lu attended as my parents. From that day on, Nathan and I changed our names. Dad Lu, Mom Lu, you gave us such a big red envelope, we must change our names. Mom Lu looked at me lovingly, smiling, and her eyes became wet. She knew that I was very happy. Goodbye Lucas, he has lost a lot of weight, and the suit looks empty on him. He gave his blessing. I smiled and nodded. I took Nathan to the next table to toast. The past has gone with the wind. Let's talk about Tang Xiaoxiao again. Lucas' interview video went viral. The full video of her coming to the hospital to look for me that day was posted by a blogger Nathan found. Tang Xiaoxiao was condemned by everyone. She was exposed by netizens. It turned out that it was not her first offense. She was used to being a mistress. I received many apology letters, one after another. I only read one and never read the rest. What's the point? You guys are just talking nonsense while cracking melon seeds. What you chewed up is my life.